Hello, everyone. I'm Richard Corbett, and I'm joined with Brandy Jordan.
Hello.
Yay, fun to be back with you guys again. We're here to talk about the Rave New Year.
We are
Yeah, 2024. Here we go.
2024, and the Rave New Year is this year on January 22nd,
At 6:18 a.m. Mountain Standard Time.
6:18 a.m. I'm glad you saved me on that one. And that is when the sun shifts into the area of the sky that people have labeled, and human design labels, gate 41. And this energy of the 64 flavors of energy, this energy is the start of something. This is the pressure to desire a human experience. And it might be kind of strange to some people who are watching this. Why is the new year on the 22nd of January? And so, as the story goes, the Gregorian calendar was changed to better suit commerce, to have the first day of the year be on January 1st. It kind of helped mathematically, but even further back than that, I believe that January, or one of these winter months, is a made-up month, and maybe we can talk about that in the next time we are in our next lunar report. But,
yeah. So it happens when the sun goes into gate 41, line 1, which takes place at 2 degrees Aquarius.
Right.
Different than the Gregorian calendar that the rest of the world operates on.
Yeah.
But if you've ever celebrated New Year's and tried to start some New Year's resolutions and it was tough to get them started, that could be one of the reasons, because the period from January 1st to the Rave New Year is actually a wonderful time to reflect and contemplate and prepare for the Rave New Year. We've been covering this in some other sessions we've been doing, but actually, let me pull the chart up so we can show folks what we're talking about.
Well, and to add to 41, while he's pulling up the chart, to talk about how 41, this energy or this frequency of 41 is genetically corresponds to our DNA. And this DNA coding that 41 codes for is the start of anything. It is the start of a process in our epigenetic system, this energy or frequency or flavor of gate 41. And so this is the beginning of the solar year.
Right, exactly. So here we are down here in the root center, gate 41. We can see in the astrological wheel, it's right, gate 41, line 1 happens when the sun is in exactly 2 degrees. Okay. Where would you like to start here? There's so many things I want to jump in on. Anything else you want to say about the Rave New Year in general?
Well, I'd love to talk about how 41 and 31 are the arms, two of the arms of the cross of the unexpected. And this just says a lot about what we get to. Maybe this is Pluto in line 60 talking, but I think that what we get to surrender to, what we get to allow is the unexpected. We get to allow this pressure, this desire, this wanting and pressure to have a new experience to build itself, and maybe to surrender to the limitations that we perceive and see where we can create and become colorful from those times.
Yeah, beautiful. And this is I would say the frequency of the year, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
This is the imprinting that we're going to be dealing with for the year. So whether or not it's defined in someone's chart, these gates are activated in that sense. They're going to be bringing us the flavor and the archetypes of each gate that are activated in this chart.
Absolutely. It's like the visual I get is like when you drop a big stone into the river, and that main big first ripple, and then the ripples kind of go out and go out and go out and go out. This is the main ripple of the 12 months that are coming. And so everything is going to be flavored or colored or have that resonance of that first stone. And this is that first stone.
Yeah. So again, it happens every year when the sun's in 41, the earth is in 31. And just want to emphasize for folks that may not know, that's the same every year. The sun-earth location is the same. All the other planets that we're going to talk about are in different places every year. So that'll be part of what we're going into. So when we think about 41, as you were sharing, this is the beginning of a new experience.
Mm-hmm.
In the circuitry of the body graph, we have the channel of recognition from the 41 to 30, and then from the 36 to the throat center, the channel of transitoriness.
Right.
So this is the pressure from the root center to have a new experience.
Right.
It's called the gate of contraction or decrease. One of my favorite illustrations of this gate is the original I Ching, and they speak about the gardener
Right.
pruning the garden.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why this gate, even though it's called decrease and contraction, it's actually the pressure to begin the experience. And the idea being, it's in the channel of recognition. It's recognizing what is the correct experience.
Right.
There are many opportunities out there,
Mm-hmm.
but this gate wants you to have the right one.
That's right. And in the image of pruning, it is the reason that we prune as gardeners is to save the energy that this plant has for new growth
Yeah,
and
exactly.
for what's coming. And so that's that decrease, or that word, that keynote, which is a beautiful one. And so this is the, in line 1, every year, it is the introspection, the foundation building, the investigation, the retro, the looking at where we've been and what we want. And so 41 in the first line, and then 31 in the first line is manifestation. This is, well, I was at 41, but 31 is the sun cannot hold back its light, and thus its influence on everyday life, the natural expression of leadership. And this is the knowing that when we, or it's in its detriment here. So the absorption of light that in darkness can only promise manifestation, the unnatural expression of leadership. I have this gate in my design, and I've done a lot of introspection of this gate. And for me, this over the years, knowing that this is the start of things was a really beautiful introspection for me. And to understand that this is about the opening of the door. It is about the ability to express what the door is, where it is, what its location is, what the color of the knob is, how many turns you have to make on it, and how to open the door for leadership. It's that expression of what's next. And so I love 41 being the foundation of the pressure to know emotionally what to experience.
Beautiful. Yeah, very nicely articulated.
Thank you.
Well, then we can also see in the chart, we have one defined channel. So maybe we'll go there. The 1057, the channel of the perfected form.
That's right.
Design of survival. It's in the integration field, which makes it also part of our individual circuitry. It's being activated by Venus in gate 10. So Venus is wrapping up Sagittarius over here at 28 degrees. And the south node is in gate 57. So we had a nodal shift about a week and a half ago.
We did.
Right? So we had the north node go into gate 51, south node in gate 57, and it's that south node activating the splenic awareness center. So do you want to talk about that channel?
Oh, I'd love to. And I'd love to talk about it in the first and the fifth lines. You know, it is the 57.5 is symmetry. It is the ability to intuitively know how to grow or how to behave in a way that is symmetrical. It doesn't have to, the detriment is having to get to the bottom of the chaos, getting to the, or this is 51 in the fifth line is what I'm describing, but 57 in the fifth line is that acuteness to know which behavior. And then in the 10, in the first line is modesty. And this is knowing my place. And really what that means is knowing what the proper behavior, what the proper expression, what the proper direction is in order to love myself in this space, knowing my place in this space and being satisfied with it.
Yeah, and I think having Venus there brings the Venusian qualities to that behavior.
Yeah.
Harmony, balance, love, desire, right? It's bringing all those beautiful qualities that we love about Venus. Now, the other thing I think about when I look at this channel is that it's the only channel that directly connects the spleen to the G center. Now, the south node being in gate 57, so if we kind of link these ideas together, the nodal axis, we typically speak of that in the sense that the south node is the past, whether it's past lives, early childhood, wherever, something behind us,
Right.
right? The idea that we may have things on board from that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we've mastered them, maybe we haven't, but it's a direction from,
Right.
and we're moving towards the North Node,
Right.
right? So, what I've been contemplating about this splenic awareness center, this is our most ancient. We've had our spleen developing since we've
Mm-hmm.
been walking upright,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, in our way to Homo sapiens. And so there's a rich genetic history in there of
Right.
instinctual knowledge.
Right.
It's very ancient. And then we think about our G center of love, direction, identity, our connection to the totality. This is
Mm-hmm.
where the magnetic monopoles in gate 2. But linking these two together, having the perfected form with the south node in gate 57. And one last thing about the south node, these are places in space. They're not planets. They're where the moon's orbit around the sun, or around the earth, excuse me, intersects the elliptic of the planets. And they can often be thought of as portals, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I think of them. And so when I think of the South Node, there is some connection to the past on many levels, like a portal would offer access to.
Right. And like there's lessons or mythology that gets to be played out so that access to that portal could be made seen.
Mm-hmm. And what it's seeing is this ancient instinctual awareness.
That's right.
From the center that gate 57 is in.
Absolutely. And in line 5, I wanted to correct myself from earlier. It is not symmetry because that was the other. It is progression. It's the ability to see, even though we can see the bigger picture, but to be able to establish new forms while maintaining the old. Mm-hmm. So the instinctual awareness of which one to build the foundation of myself upon. And I just wanted to add in that channel that I feel leading up to 2027 and the genetic shifts. And, I'm not a doomsday or anything like that. I'm more of a become aware of the weather and prepare for it and will be prepared. And so what I see here in this is like a benevolent push from whatever we call our creator, a benevolent invitation into, okay, here is support from the cosmos, the gods, the program, the code, whatever, to build the foundation of yourself in a way that feels good for you right now. 10.1 isn't, the heretic. It is modesty. It is, how do I fit here? And how do I be safe and survive here? I think that it's so beautiful that it's attached to 57 because that is that primal instinctual awareness of how to stay alive. Yeah. And 10 is the love of myself. So how do I stay alive loving myself? And so this being the imprinting of this year of 2024, I think is really potent and loving and benevolent and an opportunity for us to kind of get our Bambi legs together and figure out how to stand and be and love and be loved.
Beautiful. And I would add to that more of the same in the sense that this is an individual channel. So it is about our deep inner core of the integration field, which is about survival. And this is so important during this period of time that we're in. We've been seeing a real build up to this in all my transit reports. There's been so many individual gates activated abnormally. So, and so to have this Rave New Year with one channel being integration and individual speaks to what you're sharing very beautifully. Very important to be aware. This is a projector channel of awareness. Of self, and it does contain the self-love, as you're saying, and so being more aware of that, it's really, really fundamental part of this year, I think, and it's important, I think, and supportive in the sense that the world is pretty ugly right now. There's so much trauma. There's so much chaos. I think you can't talk to anyone that doesn't feel the sense of what we're going through, the magnitude. And so to have this channel is bringing it right back to our innermost core of what we feel of as self-love and how to be aware of that. And
as a mystic and a spiritual woman, I know how benevolent that is because I know that the only change that we can make is the change that we radiates from us. I know that me loving myself deeper and stopping the war on my own land and territory is the thing that will change everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that again, this is just a gift. It's a beautiful frequency, and it says you can ride me if you want, or or whatever. You get to see what you want to see. Perception is the choice.
Yeah, it is. And of course, following strategy and authority is
Right.
always the foundation. This takes care of all of these
Mhm.
transits, but certainly the awareness of them, which is why we do this, is tremendously supportive. We know what's going on out there, not only, well, in other people. I mean, everyone's going to have this chart
Right.
inside of them to a degree,
Right.
to a
Vibrating
sense.
like a
Yeah,
gong.
yeah. And so it's not only being aware of the weather, it's aware of other people.
Right.
And everyone having this archetype defined, being given the opportunity to have this awareness.
Right.
All right, so there's the channel built on survival, I would say, but that's a pretty mundane way to say it. I think of it more, what I want to share, I think, as we transition into some of these other planets is in any individual channel, there is a deep element of creativity.
Right.
Right. And that, to me, as we go through all these other individual gates, and let me just say right now, if the viewers haven't counted them up, 9 of 13 activations. And if we count Chiron, which I always like to think about, that's 10 of 13 activations in individual gates. Yeah. So I think we want to just mention the keynotes of individuality, right, which is mutative and empowering and creative and inspirational and contains kernels of inner truth.
Absolutely.
But it also contains limitations.
And melancholy.
Yeah. And when I say
pressure.
Yeah. And when I say limitation, of course, my next spot I want to go is to Pluto, which is at 0 degrees Aquarius. It just crossed into Aquarius prior to the Rave New Year. And it is currently in gate 60, line 4, in the gate of limitations.
Right.
And again, in some of my other transit reports, I've been talking about this a lot. Pluto to me, as the planet of death, rebirth, and transformation, it operates at a very deep subconscious psychological level for all of us, but it does speak to our truth, finding truth. Pluto transits whatever aspect they're in. That's what they're working on, is our core incarnation cross truth. And so having it in gate 60, the channel of mutation, a design that initiates and fluctuates, which is the core formatting channel of individual circuitry, and gate 60 being the gate of limitations, also called acceptance. And the tagline for gate 60 is the first acceptance of limitations is the first step in transcendence. Right. And so what I'm getting at with this here is that Pluto really resonates as a planet, not only with this channel of mutation, but with the gate of limitation. Right. So I just think that's really fascinating to think about when it's here in gate 60, which it's going to be crossed into Aquarius. It's going to go retrograde pretty soon. It'll back into Capricorn again. Then it'll turn forward. It's not going to leave Capricorn for good until November of this year. Right. And then once that happens, it won't be back in Capricorn again for 248 years. Right. So it spends a lot of time in each gate, years in gate 60. But I think it's a transformative time, to say the least. And so that Pluto that I've been deconstructing in gate 60, it's also conjunct the sun. And so what we can say about that is that transformative quality of Pluto is joined forces with the life-giving energy of the sun itself. So pretty spectacular combo of a conjunction right at the Rave New Year, for sure. And it's 2 degrees apart there, and that's why, again, the sun being in 41 and Pluto being in 60 gate 4, but over here it's only a 2-degree separation. So from an astrological perspective, they are connected. And they're really, I think it's giving us a taste, just this conjunction, of what it's going to look like when Pluto is in Aquarius for good. Right. Because it's going to back out again, as I said, into Capricorn and come back, as the Rave New Year goes off, we may get some taste of what this next round of having Pluto in Aquarius for 20 years is going to bring us. Right.
And there's so much of a story to talk about with Pluto in gate 60 and the last time it was there and now that it's here, and the story of the gate of limitation or the gate of acceptance in the gate of new beginnings. And so some of the keys, these inner planets being the 10 and the 57, the individual behavior, acceptance of self. There's another word of acceptance there in that channel. And so there is a theme of acceptance of Saturn, 55 in the sixth line. I don't want to move there yet, but we can see how they're all going to play together in the story of accepting our individual, authentic voice, truth, creative, mutative, empowering to others and ourselves voice in 23. I love the play between 60 and 41. And I also love 51, this nodal step that we move into when we are able to have that intuitive tapping into progression, how to move in a way that's healthy for everyone. That's also our authentic truth this year. We are going to be supported, or being able to build. 51 in the fifth line is this withstanding shock. 51 in the fifth line, right? Did I say it right? Is withstanding shock and building symmetrically with shock. And I really understood, when I understood 51 in the fifth line, I understood my 51 in the sixth line. I think all the ways of, side note, of me understanding the 6 lines or to understand the fifth line. And so creating symmetrically, understanding this fifth line, this being able to be within the shock or the bad news of it all, and to create in proportion, in a way that allows it, instead of trying to understand why the shock, it's not time to understand that. That's in the sixth line in alienation. It's time to be able to exist within the shock. And that's what I think that the North Node, the prize, the ability to plant something to stand up on, 51 is giving us.
Yeah, and I want to add the word courage.
Courage.
To be courageous,
courageous
through this year.
Yeah,
I think we all could use a dose of that.
It's like I imagine this coming year is like, my son loves the Star Wars, and he's driving his Mandalorian and like a bazillion miles an hour and just zooming past everything. It took a lot of courage, but really what that is there's a bazillion things happening around us all the time, and it takes courage to look at and express within our truth.
Well, again, I want to emphasize, to me, that is the word of the year. Truth, inner truth. I mean, all this individual activation. Well, let's take a look at the other planets. Now, to leave individual gates for a moment, we have Neptune is in 36, line 4.
Right.
Again, very slow-moving planet. It's been here for a long time, and we got a long ways to go. It's going to be in 36 for the entire year. Looking from a planetary position, Neptune being the planet that rules Pisces, it speaks to our imagination, our creativity as well. Neptune has no limits. It's beyond the boundary of Saturn, and it goes forever.
Right.
And so it can bring this idea of unlimitedness to it. And it is in the gate of crisis. And I mean, we can look at this from many different perspectives. I think part of this, to me, speaks to the global crisis we're looking at. It just seems endless. Like, where do we go from here? We're going to say something?
Yeah, and in line 4, I think it speaks to our ability to be within crisis by leaning on our network. I mean, this one's called espionage, but it's really about being able to lean on our network in order to withstand and survive the crisis.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said that, because we didn't mention the line 4 in the gate 60.
Oh, we didn't.
It's a line of resourcefulness. So again, as we are finding ways to accept these limitations, that line 4 is about with others as well.
Yes.
So leaning on our people, if you will, is very important to go through this limitation.
Very, very important. And we could, at another time, go through the Rave charts coming up to 2027. But what you can see here is that it is all of this framework of gates in the 4th line that it seems to be setting us up for individuated togetherness. And I feel like we've all been talking about this before. It's not as if, the tribes, because 19 is going away, that means all of tribal connection is going away. No, it means togetherness together, separately together, individuatedly together.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to know that the only way we can be the fullest expression of ourselves is through our fractal or our ecosystem that we find ourselves within.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great way to share that. Now, if we look at Uranus in gate 23 up here in another individual gate in the channel of structuring, which is the channel of individuality, this is the gate of assimilation or splitting apart, and it speaks to this unique creative voice, individual expression. Uranus, just as I was explaining, I think 60 as a Pluto as a planet really kind of resonates vibrationally with gate 60. I think Uranus really relates that way vibrationally with all of individual circuitry.
Right.
Uranus is the unusual planet. It's out of nowhere, not sure what it's going to deliver, the wild card in the deck of the planets, if you will. So very stimulating placement of Uranus. It also has been here a pretty good while because it moved forward in 23, gate 23. It did its retrograde movement all the way back to line 1, and it's not quite finished. It's not really hardly moving at all right now down here in Taurus.
And you said that's such a big deal because of the potency, right?
Yes. When planets stop their forward movement and station, and then they go backwards and they stop again and then move forward. Whenever they're in that stationary position in a chart, they're very powerful. And even they're not moving, but it's like the power of the inertia.
Yeah.
The power of the vibrational quality of that planet is really giving it to that line.
Right.
There's no momentum going forward.
Right.
Okay. So, and in fact, well, I wanted to mention something about Pluto in the line 4. I'll come back to that.
Okay.
But just to stay with the Uranus here, it's actually going to technically start moving forward on January 27th,
right.
So just a few days after the new year. But the idea that it went back to the foundational line, bringing the qualities of Uranus into this unique expression gate, I think it's very potent. And so I think as our story will continue to build with these other gates we're going to go through, that finding or accepting limitations in the gate 60, through that process, we can maybe find this unique voice.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's part of our story, our mythology is to have a unique voice.
Right. And it's giving us not only the pressure to have a new human experience through the crisis, initiating through the chaos, myself symmetrically with the world around me as myself. And now I was given the little gift of 23 of this ability to take this concept, this huge, freaky concept that is me, because me has never been here before. So this huge, freaky concept of me, and break it down into compartments. 23, I imagine, is compartments. And I can take this big thing and say, okay, this is 1, and this is 2, and this is 3. So I feel like it's a little gift from the gods, this Uranus in 23, because I would say that because that's my split. My bridge is my split, and 43 is my Uranus. So I would say that about this. But I am saying that I think it's a gift to be able to explain these big concepts about ourselves to our loved ones. And this is a gift that helps us do that.
Yeah. And so again, that will be the last outer planet to turn forward in this last cycle we've been having, because Neptune and Pluto all turned retrograde at the end of 23. So finally, Uranus will turn forward. I'm sorry, they turned forward at the end of 23. So here we go. Uranus will turn forward on the 27th. At that point, for a while, we're going to have all of the planets moving forward. And I do think that's important as well, because there was a point at the end of last year when all the outer planets were moving retrograde.
Right.
And it can have that underlying anchor that we don't feel like we're moving.
That's right.
Like with all the chaos and the drama that was happening, it just felt like we weren't going anywhere.
Right,
so we may, as we ease into February and March and all the outer planets are picking up speed, we'll see if we might feel like we're getting some traction on whatever issue, anyone's living through. But there'll definitely be some more forward movement happening.
So get your structures in place. Here we go.
Yeah, exactly. Great segue there. Yeah. Saturn in gate 55, the gate of spirit, also called the gate of abundance, channel of emoting, a design of moodiness. Saturn, the taskmaster, father time, the planet of discipline, structure, rigidity. But Saturn is here to carry that ruler. Yeah. And if we don't take care of the business required, Saturn will let us know. I often say that it sort of provides the guardrails in our life. We often experience Saturn as limitations or challenges. But if we didn't have those, we wouldn't grow.
Right.
We wouldn't have the questions about who am I and what
Right.
am I doing and where am I going. So,
Mm.
always a planet that doesn't get a lot of love from everyone,
Right.
but Saturn does love us.
I think so.
I
I think
think.
it's all for benevolence, right?
I do too. So, but I've again talked about Saturn in gate 55 a lot because
Yeah.
it also did its entire retrograde movement in gate 55.
Yeah.
So we've been getting a lot of Saturn in gate 55. And so, to me, this has been like, it's in Pisces 55. And so to me, it's been like a Saturn providing a handrail, a structure, a set of stairs into the dream world, into the land of creativity, into the land of inspiration. It's in a very emotional gate. And and here we're thinking of the cyclical nature of the emotional chemistry of lives. So it has a big swing from the ups and the downs and the melancholy and the high ends, but finding balance there and having Saturn there is offering the opportunity for each of us. However, whether this gate is defined in a chart or not, just archetypally, there is structure available to find the equilibrium, to find the balance in that cyclical nature. And I think that's really supportive to have modalities, to have discipline about things that inspire you.
Right.
Writing, drawing, singing, playing instruments, walks in nature.
Right.
I mean, these are structures that we can form in our daily habits that touch on our individual core, which this gate is a part of.
Right. And this individual core is your expression of your emotional spirit. It's the, when you're talking about the creativeness, this is the ability to, in the sixth line, it's the ability for your selfishness, your divine selfishness. Yes, I know that you think that this is what should be, but this is what is. The put your mask on first, the always making sure that this is 10 in the first line, making sure that your expression is something that is what you are. And being clear. I think 55 is, well, in all the lines, of course, but it is about clarity. I think and Saturn has taught me over this time, what I have found is that when there is emotional expression without clarity, it has not always been the truth of my spirit. And I'm not an emotional person, but I know that this is something that, the cosmos is vibrating in my body and saying, okay, well, here's another handrail, because if that's not really true, here's the expansion is going to get you.
Very nice. And so let's go take a look at Jupiter in gate 27 right now. And I'm going to point out that Jupiter is at 6 degrees Taurus, which is sextile to 5 degrees Saturn in gate 55. So if we think of Jupiter in gate 27, the gate of caring, Jupiter, the planet of expansiveness, it just gives energy to expand whatever it touches. But I think what it's doing here is giving us this opportunity to examine how we care for others and ourselves. I mean, the gate itself speaks very much to the idea of understanding self-care.
Absolutely.
And balancing that, having enough, but not too much. Right. Not being selfish, the line one there.
Yeah.
But then having that first before we can care for others.
Yeah, and it's in line 5. So the executor, the one who, like you just said, takes the tally and is able to look at the structure and say, okay, now it's balanced. So if we're talking about being ourselves through the chaos and the initiation, being able to assimilate ourselves, it's really about these structures that we're talking about. Putting this stuff in place to ground you in what is true for you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that gate 27 and gate 55 are sextile each other, there is this flowing relationship. There's another relationship that we can see from the astrological wheel where this idea of spirit and how we work with that, how we experience that, it's connected to caring.
Right.
And that makes sense.
Right, it does. Because that's how we integrate, because then it goes together there. So, yeah, I think so.
Okay, then we can look at Mars. Mars is still in Capricorn, up here in gate 38. And we actually have 2 planets in gate 38 because Mercury is also in gate 38.
And we were talking about that earlier, this, the keynote that Ra gave it is opposition. and the fighter.
Mm-hmm.
And I love those words, and I think they're beautiful pointers, just
Mm-hmm.
like all words are. And I think perseverance is another pointer that we can use as well.
Yeah.
And especially in Mercury and Mars at this time in the first and the fifth line. You want to talk about Mercury and Mars?
Yeah, so Mercury being the planet of intellect,
Mm-hmm.
communication, it's in Capricorn when it's in gate 38. And Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, but it does bring this sign of structure and determination for
Right.
sure. And so Mercury bring its communicative ability to the pressure of gate 38, which is the pressure to fight, sure, fight, persevere for meaning. I mean, this
Right.
is the channel of struggle, a design of stubbornness. And that individual gate, root pressure, we're thinking the adrenal glands of the root center, we're going to have that pressure to find meaning, essentially.
Yeah. And in this first line, it could be fighting for fighting's sake, just fighting or persevering for persevering's sake. Instead of listening to those intuitive knowings that tell you what to fight for and how to fight for it.
Right. We're going to really want to rely on that gate 57 over here. But we add on that, we kind of double down with gate 38 because we have planet Mars, which is in Capricorn.
How are we fighting?
Now, Mars is actually exalted in Capricorn, so he's in a happy space there.
Yeah.
Mars being the god of war and can think like willpower. It's drive, the energy to go out and self-assert. This is what Mars represents. And the planet of Capricorn, he's very happy because he likes that structure. It's very disciplined. Mars fits Capricorn very well, and that's why we say he's exalted there. Now, Mars rules Aries and Scorpio, but when he's in his exaltation, it's like being at your best friend's house. You're treated well, your friend likes you. You're not at home necessarily. It's not like being at home, but you're treated like an honored guest in that sense. And so he really carries his full power here in Capricorn. So bringing what we already said about Mercury and gate 38, now we're bringing this Mars energy. So two personal planets tied up in this individual gate of an adrenal pressure to find meaning in our own life.
Right.
It's pretty heavy.
And 5 is alienation, right? It's I'm going to fight by myself. So it's a perfect Martian energy. I'm going to fight for myself. And I'm just going to fight for fighting's sake. And that could be something that we may experience.
And I think that's one thing to be aware of. Yeah. Right. We're talking about a chart that everybody's going to have as a background frequency for the year. And I think this Mars is what's going to cause inflame a lot of these conflicts this year.
And I think that is Mars and Mercury's job to really bring the mythology to the table. And we've got 10 and 57 again and 55 and all of these keys of being able to, the opportunity to start anew this direction and this ideal direction of self that will help us survive in the future.
Yeah.
Through the friction that Mars and Mercury bring.
Well, let's see. We've covered. We already talked about Venus in 10, Mercury and Mars in 38. The nodes. The only planet we haven't mentioned yet is the Moon.
Right.
Can't forget our Mother Luna.
Beautiful.
She is such a beautiful planet. Yep. The gate of caution, also an individual circuitry. It's in a manifesting channel called the channel of openness, a design of the social being, or not.
Or not.
But it is, let's just kind of deconstruct it a little bit. The moon, wow, the moon is so powerful in all of our lives. In human design, we say it's what drives us. It drives us from the inner reflective side of ourselves. Just as the moon reflects the light of the sun, this moon is this inner quality that we have, the emotional quality, and it's very powerful. And so when we put that in another individual gate, that's really, bringing this an emotional quality, if you will, to an individual.
Emotional,
That's right. It's an individual manifesting channel.
Right.
So this is a pretty passionate quality I'm sensing here in this gate 12.
And I love that it's in gate 4. Again, it's about being able to prepare myself and others for the standstill or the stopping or the observation, right? This is in the only social being emotional channel there. So it's about I think that this is another gift or another I don't know, another little thing that came down from the gods that says, okay, well, now we have the opportunity to use our voice or not, use our art or not, use our creations or not, to prepare for the moodiness, if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
To prepare for the ebb and flow of this next emotional experience that we're about to enter into.
And that what that's also giving us is two individual expression gates. So again, we just keep layering on this idea of individuality this year. It's extremely emphasized at a minimum.
That 31-1 is the other one, because it's like, okay, well, I'm going to open the door for those two to say some stuff.
Yeah. Can't stop that. Now, the other thing I want to mention about the moon, which is in Gemini when it's in gate 12, is squaring very tightly to the Neptune in gate 36.
Yes.
So those two gates square each other in the Rave mandala. So just thinking about the connection of that, whenever we have a square, we're talking about a dynamic energy. It's a frictional, the idea is that something might need to be resolved.
Yeah.
There's an ongoing conversation that is got a lot of heat to it, if you will. And so if we break that down between the 12 and the 36, I think we can see that. And what I'm feeling is just how this opportunity of whatever's happening at gate 36, whatever experience or crisis or beginning of this new experience we're talking about, it's stimulating this individual voice, right? It's really, I don't want to use the word pressurizing, but yes, in some dynamic way, there's some frictional energy that the experience can drive the empowerment of the individual voice.
Well, yes. And if we're looking at the wanting of an experience or the planning for the outcome of the experience, I mean, the 36 is the wanting. It's 36 in the fourth line was the espionage. And in the fourth line here, it's the prophet. So you can see how those stories could play together. And there could be potential in the square to either trump your desire for experience and knowing, for the truth that you know about preparation and making sure that that things are taken care of, your community's taken care of. There could be a balance there that is asking you to who are you within this challenge?
Yeah. Yeah. Really nice. Well, that covers all of the activations. I just think we maybe, I'm thinking to myself to sort of sum up. Well, actually, there's one last one. We didn't cover Chiron.
Oh my gosh.
And I always love to add Chiron. It's one of my favorite planets. But
Mine too.
Chiron is in gate 51 as well.
Right.
Okay, so we think about the North Node in 51 line 5. Chiron is in 51 line 1. So the North Node moves retrograde all the time. Chiron is now moving forward. So they're rapidly, Chiron's pretty slow, but they're moving towards each other. They're going to be conjunct mid-February in 51 line 2.
I think this is pretty wild and fantastic that there is a portal, there is an opening, there's a possibility of through this, through whatever wounding we perceive we have, through this darkening of the light and these experiences. That we are able to give voice to them. And there is this portal or this ability for the awareness of what was supposed to be initiated and how that darkness was supposed to be here and how what we've gained and how the light is so much brighter now that we've walked through those tunnels.
Right.
It's giving us this opportunity, this pure opportunity to pass ourselves in the tunnel of initiation.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah. Thinking North Node, talking about where we're heading, having the, again, to think of Chiron, once again, I think that Chiron as a planet really vibrationally resonates not only with the channel of initiation, we call it the channel of the shaman, and Chiron being the wounded healer, but how somehow this gate 51 has extra importance this year. We are going to be stimulated not only by obviously world events, but in our personal lives. I think it plays a big role this year because there's so much individual circuitry. Part of this finding our life path, our incarnation cross, finding the meaning being stimulated by gate 38, accepting the limitation of gate 60, dealing with our feeling of abundance and spirit. A lot of that is going to come back to where our sensation or contemplation of where Chiron has touched us in our lives,
Yes.
what personal wounds we have had,
Absolutely.
that we hope to find acceptance of,
Right.
and to alchemize, to alter or somehow change that wound or vulnerability, or wherever we have these fear, doubt, and insecurities, to have the courage of Gate 51,
Right.
to transcend that Gate 60
Mm-hmm.
in our own individual, creative, inspired way.
Mm-hmm.
And I really feel so deeply that's one of the core messages of the neutrino weather this year.
Absolutely.
Is tremendous stimulation to really sink in to why are we here.
Mm-hmm.
If we're breathing, we're here for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to see that sometimes due to the nature of what's happening on the planet right now. It seems very fearful.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of uncertainty. No one knows where all this is going, but
Mm-hmm.
yet through that chaos, at least from the body graph this year, deep support on going deeply inward.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Deeply inward, also expressive of our emotional truths, which we all get to learn how to do,
Mm-hmm.
and the skill to be able to, and the intuition. So this is again with 1057, the intuitive knowing of how I fit in the world around me, and these voice gates that are able to assimilate my new knowing, open the door for someone to hear my truth and connect with them in an emotional, connective way through the chaos, if you will, or the limitation, or the birth, the birthing. All of this talks about constriction and birth, and how we breathe through it, and who we become on the outside of it. And it's just a year that has, I mean, every chart will have benevolence, but this year, if we're talking about the superhero-ness, of this chart, is I see it's the ability to integrate ourselves into the places and spaces and relationships that are the truest expression of who we are. The willpower to withstand all of the shocking crumblings that have to get to occur in order for the new growth to come. The pressure and emotional clarity to be able to know what comes next, and what could I bring with me from the rubble of what I'm leaving, and metaphorically and really.
Yeah,
what
that's true.
do I take with me from that, and who is me from that, all of that. And like you said, I just think that we're supported in the being the leader of our own truth.
Yeah, very well said. I like that. Well, should we wrap it up there? Anything else you'd like to share about
I could
the chart?
mention that there is no head and ajna definition.
Yeah, that's a good one. Absolutely.
So we are not here to think about stuff.
That's right.
We're here to feel about stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say get deep, get real, find that inspiration,
Right.
and hold on to it. It's the Pluto Sun conjunction, deeply transformative kickoff to the new year.
Let yourself be inspired by everything, anything, and not be certain of any of it.
Yeah.
But just to feel your way through it. And I think that's the best part.
Yeah. Great. All right, then.
All right.
Well, that was fun. Thanks for joining us again, and we wish you all a very happy Rave New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. We will see you again for the next lunar event.
Yeah. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.